Here is my tier list for every Warbond that's come out so far as of February 22nd, 2026. Um, there have been a lot of updates and a lot of balance changes and a lot of Warbonds released. And I think for a new player, it is a bit overwhelming. I have 1,000 hours experience playing Helldivers, so this is my analysis of each Warbond. Um, I won't be reviewing the free Warbond because everybody gets that for free, right? This is kind of for people who are free to play, who may not play the game as much, and are looking for which of the premium Warbonds they should prioritize getting. Starting in order, we'll go with Steeled Veterans. Steeled Veterans, let's see here. Steeled Veterans has the servo-assisted armor passive, and the way I treat armor passives and Warbonds, most of the armor passives, if not all of the armor passives in Warbonds, are not unique to the Warbond and can be acquired in the Superstore. So if the only thing that a Warbond has is a decent armor passive and nothing else, I'm not going to rate it very highly. Because why get the Warbond when you can just get the Superstore armor instead if the armor passive is that good? Servo-assisted armor passive, with that being said, is a good armor passive. I do use this fairly consistently across multiple fronts. Probably shines the most against the bots or against the Illuminate, where you're able to throw in orbital stratagems or eagles from a safe distance without having to worry about return fire. It's not completely worthless against the bugs because extra limb health is nothing to scoff at when you're running away from a horde of hunters. And being able to throw an orbital barrage into the middle of a mega nest from outside the nest is nothing to scoff at. Senator is a very good secondary weapon. It has heavy armor penetrating, and which allows it to kill hulks, which is one of the makes it one of the few secondaries that's able to do that without hitting the back vent, that is. Liberated Concussive, it was buffed, but it's still not great. Any kind of weapon that relies on stun or pairing it with gas and fire, which is the best way you can use these kinds of concussive or stunning weapons, it's not going to be meta. It's not going to be optimal. It's good for team play. It's not good when you're ever alone. And sometimes in the chaos of things, you're going to be alone. And if you're being chased by a horde and you died once and you don't have all of your, you don't have your guard dog or your, stratagems that you pair with the Liberated Concussive or on cooldown, you can find yourself in some pretty tough situations. So I don't rate it very highly. The job that it tries to do can be done by just picking a weapon that has a higher fire rate and more damage and just kills enemies faster. And if you are going for like a stun type of builds, a pacifier is going to be better than the Liberator Concussive. So flexible reinforcement budget, it's fine. It's a fine booster. It's not a good booster. It's like you're never gonna see anybody bring this. Like in high level lobbies, there are only 4 boosters anybody brings, or usually there are only 4 boosters anybody brings, and this is not one of them. It's a fine booster. It's not a great booster. So I wouldn't prioritize picking it up for that booster. For our Dominator, it's fine. It's a fine weapon. I don't like the rocket propelled munitions because it does take time for the bullet to reach the enemy, as opposed to most weapons which reach the enemy almost instantly. So if you're constantly having to think about leading your shots, it's not great. You know, one of the bonuses is that it doesn't have damage fall off because it's rocket propelled. It also simultaneously makes it harder to hit because if you are aiming at something that's that far away, you have to account for travel time of your munitions. So maybe a skill issue on my part, but I just don't feel like it really fits a niche that isn't filled by another weapon. Breaker Incendiary, actually unique weapon. Really good against squids, good against bugs. I'd say it's not S tier. I'd say that it's good for clearing chafe, but there are a lot of weapons that are good for clearing chafe. And, you know, in the free Warbond that everybody gets, there's a lot of good primaries for clearing chafe. This isn't going to necessarily fill a new niche for you unless you specifically want to go for a fire build, or if you want to pair a weapon that sets enemies on fire with gas grenades or something like that. It's a good weapon. I would say it's an A tier weapon, maybe a B tier weapon, but not something that you would specifically go out of your way to select this Warbond for. Incendiary throwable, it's good. It's a good throwable. Though I would probably prefer the Impact Incendiary, which I believe is in the Polar Patriots Warbond. Yeah. So there's a better throwable that's impact instead of on a timer. So not really anything in this Warbond that I would go out of my way to get. Maybe the Senator. Honestly, the Senator is probably the weapon out of this that I use the most still. So for that reason, I'm going to put the Steel Veterans at C. It has some things, it has good items in it. It doesn't have absolutely terrible weapons. Arrowhead has done a fairly decent job of balancing weapons over time so that they're more in line with like the same power level, but like that doesn't really make any of the things in Steel Veterans stand out. Cutting Edge, the booster is fine. It's decent on commando missions, and if you're into stealth, that's a decent booster to bring. Not necessarily F tier, or not necessarily S tier. The sickle, it's good. It's a fine laser weapon. Sometimes when you're in a pinch and you have a horde of enemies on you, the time it takes to charge up and start firing the sickle will be noticeable. But if you're going for an all laser build, if you're on like an ice planet, this weapon can stand out as a pretty good option. They buffed the Punisher Plasma, and now I think it is a really good weapon, maybe even meta. If you're looking for a stun based build that you pair dot effects with, like gas and fire, this weapon shines the most, I think, as the only weapon that I think you should ever bring. Unless you're really concerned about close quarters combat, but if you're using gas, I think you can create some distance to use the Punisher Plasma. So I generally don't think there is like there are niche situations maybe that you would pick another weapon over this, but medium armor pen, heavy stagger on the shots. The arc is something you can get used to fairly easily, and it also allows for you to shoot over like hills and walls once you get a hang of it. So honestly, after they buffed the Punisher Plasma, it made this Warbond more worth getting. I think that in this Warbond, the Punisher Plasma is probably the only thing that you'd be picking this up for. The armor passive is not great. You're not going to have many situations where you have a 4 stack that are all using arc weapons. And there aren't many enemies that do arc damage. In fact, there's one. There's the Tesla Tower for the Illuminate. So this is like almost only going to be in the context of friendly fire arc damage. So it's very niche. It's not a very good armor passive. It doesn't really do a whole lot for you. It can lead to some fun situations, but it's not It's not good. Stun grenade, it's fine. It's good. In most situations, gas is just going to be better because it also um, pairs a pseudo stun with a dot effect. The Blitzer, it's fine. It's not a great weapon, but it's not terrible. Las Dagger, not great. Don't think I would ever pick this as my secondary weapon, especially when the Talon exists as a laser secondary. So overall, the only thing that I think is really good from this Warbond is the Punisher Plasma, but that does make it so that Cutting Edge has one thing in it that is meta, which is more than Steel Veterans can say for itself. So even though I think the stuff you get overall from Steeled Veterans is better, Cutting Edge has one thing in it that's really good, so I think that makes it on the same level as Steeled Veterans. All right, next is Democratic Demolition, and this has been touted as the best Warbond for a very long time. And I don't think that much has changed. The armor passive you get, not unique. Extra throwables and reduced recoil when crouching. The Thermite, still an S tier throwable. You can get Fabricators with it. You can get most heavy weapons with it, or most heavy enemies with it. You one-shot Hulks. You can one-shot tanks. You can one-shot almost every enemy unit if you know where to place it. Eruptor, S tier primary. It's been S tier for a little while, ever since they reworked it a while ago and gave it heavy armor penetration. You can one-shot gunships if you hit it on the engines on the side. You can two-shot a Hulk if you hit it on its head, I believe. Overall, a fantastic primary and still considered S class or S tier. S class. Grenade pistol, really good secondary. Sometimes used to kind of fill the niche of closing holes if you don't have a primary that can do that, or if you're using a throwable that isn't able to close holes, the grenade pistol can kind of fill that gap in your build. So it's great utility. Same with the exploding crossbow. Exploding crossbow, just like the Eruptor, considered really good by the community. I personally prefer the Eruptor over the crossbow, but you know, I know that it has its diehard fans, and people sing its praises. So I don't necessarily disagree with them. It's more of a personal preference for me. The Adjudicator is a very good AR. It's got medium penetration and high damage. Been a staple primary for a while. Not necessarily a highlight. It might be a highlight in another Warbond, but not in this one, where it's kind of overshadowed by the Eruptor and the crossbow and the pistol, but still a really good rifle. So overall, Democratic Demolition still has a ton of really, really good stuff to pick up. And I think it is still unquestionably an S tier Warbond, and maybe the first Warbond that most people should pick up, or it should at least be a consideration. It also has this booster, but again, if you're not the stamina boosting booster or the enhanced stims booster, you're not gonna be caring about a booster in a Warbond. All right, Polar Patriots. Irrelevant booster. Never see anyone bring this. It doesn't affect EMS strikes or stun effects. So it doesn't really have a use outside of being slowed by acid, which is really only something that the uh, that the Terminids do. Literally no other faction has a slow effect. So it's only useful against one faction, and it's not even that useful against in those very niche situations where you get slowed down by acid. So Tenderize a really good AR. It has the ability to increase its fire rate, which makes it one of the fastest time to kill ARs. It has a fire rate comparable to an SMG, and has the range of a rifle. So definitely a good primary, even though it has light armor penetration. Pummeler kind of just outshone by the Punisher Plasma, but it's fine. They buffed it. It's not the worst weapon in the world anymore. Incendiary Impact, really good throwable. It can close bug holes and also is not on a timer. So if there is a bug breach or a bot drop or a squid drop, you can throw this on the place where they all spawn and take care of most of, not all of, the chafe. There's also a Deagle in this Warbond, which is good. It's a good secondary. It's not S tier. That would be reserved solely for the Ultimatum and the Talon. But it's still fine. It's still a fine secondary weapon. Purifier, fine. I never use this weapon. Whenever I see people bringing a weapon that looks like this, I have to squint and try to figure out whether it's the Scorcher or the Purifier. I never see this brought. I never see any conversation about it. So I have to assume it's just middle of the road, because it just doesn't really seem to be a weapon that many people care to pick up and use. But I don't think it's bad. I don't think that's necessarily a bad gun. Overall, Polar Patriots just doesn't have anything that's that special. The best thing that you can get from this Warbond is going to be the Incendiary Impact and the Tenderizer, but the Tenderizer doesn't really fill a specific niche. It's a really good weapon, but it's a light penetration assault rifle, and you're going to have a lot of those to choose from, that are all going to be fairly comparable in how effective they are. So while the Tenderizer is a good weapon, it's not something that I would pick up this Warbond for. And so for that reason, I think Polar Patriots is a D tier. All of the armor passives are some, like, other than the servo-assisted heavy armor in the first page, are going to be armor passives that you can pick up in the free Warbond. So nothing exciting there. A lot of the things that you can pick up are outshone by other weapons you can pick up in other Warbonds or in the free Warbond. Nothing is going to be necessarily build defining. There are plenty of throwables that are, we have 3 fire throwables now, which are all fairly comparable. So even like the best thing in this Warbond, the Incendiary Impact, isn't something that's even unique. So I just don't think that Polar Patriots is something that anyone should prioritize. Next up is Viper Commandos. Viper Commandos has the Peak Physique armor passive. It does have a Peak Physique medium armor in the Superstore. It is a good, is definitely a good armor passive. They recently nerfed it, quote unquote, where they reduced the increase in melee damage that you get from it, but overall the amount of melee damage that you do with melee weapons got increased. So overall it was a buff to melee builds. They just didn't want people to feel like they had to pick the armor that boosts their melee damage. With that being said, if I was doing a melee focus build, I would still be picking the Peak Physique armor. Sometimes I pick the Peak Physique armor even when I'm not doing a melee focus build. Whenever I'm using the minigun, this is a popular type of armor that I pick for it, just because it makes it so much easier to turn around with and re-aim a really big weapon. So it's a decent armor passive. There's some unique weapons in here. The Liberator carbine got buffed a little while back, and or it didn't get buffed. I think it might have gotten tuned up a little bit, but the big thing for the carbine that really made it good was when they added weapon attachments. So now it is possible to put a drum mag on the Liberator carbine, which just makes it an absolute beast. It's comparable to a Stalwart. It has an insane fire rate. It's light armor penetrating, but it throws a lot of damage downrange very, very quickly. So it is a very good primary, even though it is, again, like the Tenderizer, a light penetration rifle. The Bushwhacker, decent secondary weapon. It's unique and it's fun. I have to admit it's fun. I wouldn't consider it S tier, but it's fun. It's definitely a fun secondary, if nothing else. Experimental Infusion. This is actually one of the only boosters that is good from a premium Warbond. One of two that I would consider an S tier booster. Because of the rarity of good boosters that you can pick up, this actually alone makes this Warbond worth picking up. If it had nothing else going for it, Experimental Infusion is worth it. It makes your stims increase your movement speed and give you damage reduction. All right. It is incredibly good for getting out of situations. I would say better than any other booster in the game, in my personal experience. It allows you to do movement and to avoid dying in so many situations. It gets its use every single game, which cannot be said for most boosters. So that alone makes this a Warbond worth picking up. I wouldn't necessarily pick this as your first Warbond. The rest of the things that you get in this Warbond aren't necessarily that special. You get a decent primary, an okay secondary, a good armor passive that you could pick up in the superstore. The throwing knife, which is not good. It's not the throwable I would pick if I was doing a stealth build at this point. And that would be the only situation where I would ever pick a throwing knife. So I think the throwing knife is actually pretty terrible. Throwable. Just because of Experimental Infusion, which is the only thing that I think is really S tier in this Warbond, I'm going to put Viper Commandos at A. It isn't the first Warbond you should pick up, but it should be up there as one of the first. Because I think this is a little maybe controversial, but the premium on a good booster in this game I think is underrated a lot. There aren't many good boosters. It's one thing that Arrowhead hasn't really touched up on yet. They've balanced a lot of the guns. A lot of the guns that you can get, a lot of the primary and secondary weapons and throwables have been balanced a few times now, so that they're not completely balanced. You're still going to get standouts like the Eruptor every once in a while that are 100% going to be S tier compared to everything else. But the kind of delta in boosters is where Viper Commandos shines, because there just aren't many really good boosters like that. And then it also has a couple other good things that you can pick up in the Warbond. The Liberator Carbine, really good primary. So I would definitely put Viper Commandos up there as something that you should consider just for the booster, if nothing else. Next Warbond is Freedom's Flame. This has a inflammable armor passive, reducing fire damage that you take. It has the cookout, which is another fire shotgun. It's fine. It has good knockback, which is good for a weapon that sets your enemies on fire, simultaneously creating distance. They've reworked fire a couple of times, and I know that the torture used to be considered one of the best primaries in the game. But they changed that, how fire damage works, and now I think that it's still good, but not necessarily an auto pick like it kind of was before. The crisper also had to be reworked when they reworked fire damage. So those all three of these weapons are good if you really want to do a fire build. These aren't terrible weapons. You won't feel bad using them. I would say that they're A tier. They really shine on the factions that have a lot of good primary weapons you can use, specifically the bugs and squids. You'll find a lot of weapons in this game that do well at clearing chafe and hordes. And so that's why, even though these weapons are really good at that role, I don't consider them S tier, because in my mind, a good primary can deal with more than just chafe. Fire is decent at killing the medium units as well. But honestly, instead of just waiting for my enemies to burn to death, I would rather just blow them up with an eruptor shot. So maybe A or B tier, just because it's outshone by the weapons that are overtuned. But still good. Firebomb Hellpods. Haven't used this in a while. But usually if you're diving into the middle of a horde of enemies, this isn't going to do enough for you to save your skin. If you're diving into the middle of a horde of Terminids, this isn't going to clear enough enemies for you to escape the horde every time. So it kind of encourages you to put yourself in situations which are hard to get out of. And it also makes it so that every single time your opponents call down their weapons, they might accidentally explode themselves with a firebomb that happens whenever their hellpods land right in front of them. It's never a booster you're ever gonna see, except when you're memeing with a 4-stack. So not something I would necessarily consider premium either. So all in all, this Warbond, it has some stuff for people who want a specific type of build. If you want to make a fire-based builds, there's some options in here, but nothing that I would consider good, or a standout, that is. So for that reason, I'm going to put Freedom's Flame along the same lines as Steel Veterans and Cutting Edge, where there are good things you can pick up in it, but it is by no means something that you should prioritize over anything else. Next up is Chemical Agents, which has a gas theme instead of a fire theme. Sterilizer, long been memed on as one of the worst support weapons you can possibly have. The gas doesn't penetrate enemies, so if you are firing the sterilizer down a line of enemies, only the first enemy is going to be gassed. It doesn't stick around for very long either, so you have to constantly be spraying it, and it doesn't have any innate damage on its own. It only applies the gas effect, so the damage over time is very slow compared to any other support weapon. If you want to do a gas build, there's a better gas support weapon you can use from the Dust Devils Warbond. So Sterilizer is an absolutely F tier support weapon still, unless they rework that. By comparison, the Guard Dog Breath, really good backpack. It basically is the Sterilizer, but it just takes up your backpack slot instead of your support weapon slot. the support weapon slot is going to have something. You're going to have more options for a support weapon slot that do a lot more work than you're ever going to have for a backpack slot, unless that backpack is the portable hell bomb. This is a good backpack to pair with a fire build to stack damage over time effects. If you have a stun primary, you can pair it with the dog breath and then maybe some napalm barrages or stuff like that, and you can get insane kill streaks and have incredible crowd control. This is a very good thing to pair with that kind of build. So by comparison to the sterilizer, dog breath I would consider one of the better stratagems that you can pick up in a Warbond. Stim pistol, it's niche, it's fun, and I would probably say not meta. It is interesting to pair the experimental infusion booster with the stim pistol, because when you do that, your stims from your stim pistol will also have that booster applied. So you can, on command, apply a stim effect to your teammates. It is not as powerful as a normal stim. The healing you get over time from that stim is a lot slower, but you still get the damage reduction and you still get the speed boost and you still get the stamina regeneration from taking a normal stim. So it does have some really good benefits. You can save your friend's life with it every once in a while. Note that if they're wearing a shield backpack, you can't shoot them with the stim pistol. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If they're behind a bubble, you have to get inside the bubble in order to apply the stim. I would say that generally your secondary slot is going to be filled by something that does a bit more than this. This requires you to be right next to your teammates at all times. And sometimes you're just not going to have the opportunities to apply the stims, especially when the firefight gets rough. It's not the easiest thing in the world to hit a Helldiver. It's a lot easier to hit enemies in this game. Helldivers are smaller and fast and unpredictable compared to the enemies in this game. This doesn't have a scope. You're probably going to be aiming this third person a lot of the time, and it's very easy to miss, even if they're right in front of you, at least with my level of skill. So while I consider it a very unique secondary and a very fun secondary, I wouldn't consider it meta. So overall, this Warbond has two things going for it. It has the stim pistol and dog breath, and that's it. The armor is just going to be for gas-centric builds. So if that's something that you really want, it fills that niche. But unlike Freedom's Flame, it does actually have some things going for it that are good, that I would consider worth picking up to fill a specific build niche. Nothing S tier like Viper Commandos with their booster, but still things that are good and fill a niche that you can't get from the free Warbond. All right, next up is Truth Enforcers. This is the Warbond you get if you want drip. You get all black paint jobs for your car, for your exosuits. You get really good looking armors. You constantly see these used in the community. The best looking Warbond in a lot of people's minds, if this was a tier list about how sexy armor is and how sexy the paint jobs are, this would be a S tier Warbond, no doubt. The actual weapons in this Warbond leave something to be desired. The halt got a little bit better ever since they recently added a button that's a dedicated weapon configuration swap, or weapon mode swap that you can bind to a new key. which makes the hull a little bit more easy to use. It is a stun weapon that also allows you to switch to medium armor penetrating flechette rounds. It's good. It's not fantastic. It's a decent weapon. It doesn't do all that much damage compared to other shotguns. It has a very low fire rate and its rounds reload compared to what you're going to get from the free Warbond with the breaker. So overall, I think if you're going for a stun type of build, you're probably going to be preferring the Punisher Plasma anyway. And if you're going for damage, you get that from other shotguns a lot better. So I don't really feel like it fills a niche well. It tries to do multiple things, and the fact that you have to swap between the ammo types and reload them separately makes it kind of clunky, even with the update that they did about changing the ammo type with a single key press. The Reprimand, it's a fine submachine gun. It's good. I think it's outshone by the Knight. I think that even though the Knight is only light armor penetration, it is just generally going to be better than the Reprimand in every sense. If you're looking for a meteor armor penetrating weapon, sure, it's fine. It's a fine weapon. It just doesn't really fill a niche for me. So it's hard for me to look at a ballistic rifle or submachine gun and just, you know, put any kind of premium on it. If you're a free-to-play player, you're going to get comparable weapons in the free Warbond. You're not going to get anything from this weapon that you're not going to get from something you pick up for free. So I don't really associate a premium with that. The Plaz Loyalist sidearm, it's fine. It's a fine sidearm. It doesn't really fill a niche. It doesn't really do anything that's like all that impressive. Unlike the grenade pistol, even though it's explosive, it doesn't destroy fabricators or bug holes, so it doesn't really have that kind of same utility. Though you can change how much you charge it up. It's fine. It's not something I'd go out of the way of to get. So, and the booster, if you see anyone bring this, they're trolling. Usually. Or they don't know any better. No one ever thinks about dead sprint, and they really don't taking damage from it. Usually it's just a lot better to just eat a stim rather than to have to equip dead sprint in order to continue sprinting past your stamina running out. So just from a kind of viability perspective, which is what I'm rating this on, Truth Enforcers, D. It's not worth prioritizing unless you really want the drip, right? You're not getting bad weapons from it, but you're not getting anything that really fills a niche well. So I definitely wouldn't prioritize it over anything else. Next up is Urban Legends. Urban Legends introduces the Siege Ready armor passive, which is considered to be maybe the best, if not the best, armor passive in the game. It's just almost always good, unless you're using a lot of las weapons that have heat sinks instead of ammo. The Stun Lance, they buffed it with the other melee weapons, but still not fantastic. Melee is never going to be meta unless you're using the hammer. The hammer, I think, is the only good melee weapon. The directional shield is interesting. It does run into the issue where it doesn't completely cover you, so if there's an explosion that would knock you down, the shield won't protect you from that in every situation. So against bots especially, which is probably what you're going to be using the directional shield with the most. I mean, you could probably use it against any faction now that I'm thinking about it. But like, it doesn't really save you from getting knocked over, and then once you're knocked over, you're not holding the shield up anymore. So it's not really doing anything to protect you, unlike the shield backpack. There is an armor that you can pair this with to avoid getting knocked over as easily. So you can be more of like the wall in front of all of your friends if you equip that armor specifically. But then you're giving up your backpack slot and your armor passive in order to fill a very niche role. It's not S tier. I'm gonna say that a lot. It's fine. It's not fantastic. It's not great. It's good. You know. Flame Sentry. This is maybe the worst sentry you could pick. One of the problems with the Flame Sentry is the same problem that I have with the Sterilizer, for where the flame does not penetrate enemies, and it will only hit the enemy that is directly in front of the sentry. And for a sentry that is low range to begin with, it makes it very easy for the sentry to be overwhelmed and destroyed. So even though it has a low cooldown time, I would almost always prefer to take the machine gun turret over the flame sentry, because the machine gun turret has a lower cooldown and is a lower time to kill on chafe enemies compared to the flame sentry, which is insane. So I do not recommend picking this up at all. Armed resupply pods. This is a fun booster to bring. I bring it occasionally when we're doing evacuate high value assets or something of the like, where we're holding one position and then a horde of enemies runs towards us. It's good, and frankly I think that it is one of the few boosters that you would consider running. It's not going to be the most common booster that you see. I think it's underrated. I think it's better than people think it is, because it's a booster that will always do something compared to a lot of boosters in this game, which will never do anything. So a decent booster, and then the anti-tank emplacement is a good emplacement to bring. It almost trivializes evacuate high value asset missions. It is so good if you're able to get it going with some shield bubbles on an eradicate mission, where you can shoot down bot ships before they're able to drop any of their units, trivializing whole waves. It's able to take out armor, the Strider convoys, which are a notoriously difficult side objective to get on the bot front. It definitely has its own niches. If you know where to hit enemies, you can one-shot most of the super heavy enemies in this game with the anti-tank emplacement. If you have it up on a hill, you can destroy entire encampments with it without any enemies getting anywhere near you. Very solid stratagem to pick up. So overall, there's one good stratagem to pick up, and then good armor passives. I would say, and in a good booster, right? In my experience. So I would say that Urban Legends is similar to Chemical Agents in that it has two good things: a good booster and the anti-tank emplacement, that are unique to creating a specific kind of build, and also good, and standouts. Paired with that, it also has a very relevant armor passive, perhaps the best in the game. And so it allows you to pick up one of the best armor passives in the game, a good booster, and the anti-tank emplacement stratagem, which is one of the better stratagems in the game. So I would put it on the same tier as Viper Commandos because of that. Even though you can pick up the Siege Ready armor in the Superstore now, I still think that Urban Legends is worth it as a Warbond to pick up. Next is Servants of Freedom. It has the integrated explosives armor passive. They buffed this a little while ago to add the extra 2 throwables, which is good. But most of the time when I'm looking for more throwables, I take the armor that reduces recoil when crouching or prone. I don't take the armor that is very likely to team kill one of my teammates because I'm holding a position with them and then I die and then my armor explodes when I'm next to my teammates. It's just not an armor that I really would consider using ever. It doesn't really fit my playstyle. The double-edged sickle is interesting. It's a weapon that starts with light armor penetration, and then as you hold down the fire button, it will build up heat, which will damage you, but also increase the armor penetration that this weapon has over time, getting it all the way up to heavy armor penetration. You will probably only ever use this weapon if you have a teammate who is dedicated to holding down left click stim pistol on you for the duration that you're using this weapon. It has the same issue as the sickle, where it has a short little window where you have to charge it before you can start firing it. So if you get swarmed, it's hard to get full use of this weapon because you have to be moving constantly to avoid like enemies. So like if you're facing terminids or if you're facing squids where they have all this chafe that's going to be surrounding you, it's going to be really hard to get up to that heavy armor penetration level when you're firing this weapon, because you're going to be swarmed so often that you're going to have to stop firing, and then it resets your heat level a little bit. But it doesn't instantly reset your heat level, so you can kind of maintain some heat between like bursts of fire, but you're always going to have that little delay before you start firing that kind of just gets on my nerves. So I think it's a good weapon. I don't think it's necessarily S tier. Ultimatum, by comparison, is absolutely an S tier secondary weapon. I think it is by far and away the best secondary weapon that you can have. It will destroy a fabricator from any angle. You don't need to hit it into a vent. You can one-shot a tank. You can one-shot a Hulk without caring about where you're aiming, as long as you hit it. It's fantastic. It only has 2 shots, but it makes every single ammo pack an anti-tank kill. One-shotting War Striders is absolutely incredible. One-shotting Hulks, one-shotting Hulks, one-shotting Chargers, one-shotting Impalers, one-shotting Bile Titans, one-shotting Dragon Roaches. It's just the amount of work that this secondary weapon does is it absolutely outclasses every single other secondary in the game, and because of that, it is like it is undoubtedly S tier, but it also has the same kind of premium as experimental infusions, where it is a standout weapon in an area where there aren't many standouts. So because of that, Servants of Freedom, if it didn't have anything else, would be an A tier Warbond that you would pick up just for the ultimatum, if nothing else. All right. Now, it doesn't only have the ultimatum. It also has the portable hell bomb. Now, the portable hell bomb is, I think, the best backpack in the game. In terms of the amount of work that it does on its own. It one-shots so many side objectives on its own. You can call it down and then walk it into a stratagem jammer while it's still active and not have to worry about going through all the steps in the terminal while fending off enemies before you can call in the hell bomb to destroy it. It allows you to run in, arm it, drop it, walk out. You don't have to die when you're using this backpack. You're able to drop the hell bomb after you arm it, and then you can run away and very often survive, unless you get unlucky. So very good backpack, very fun backpack. One of the highest impact stratagems that you can call in, and doesn't have that crazy of a cooldown. So you can pretty easily get at least 3 of these used per match, and clear 3 whole side objectives on your own with little to no effort. uh, Even if you're not using it on a side objective, it will insta kill almost every enemy in the game outside of a hive lord, you know. So definitely a very good stratagem to pick up. The seeker throwables are fun. They're a decent throwable. They can't be used to clear fabricators or bug holes or the like, because they automatically choose their targets, and one of those targets can't be the vent of a fabricator or a bug hole for some reason. I don't know why, but that's just how they work. They're like impact grenades, but they choose their targets. The area where they shine the most is against the Illuminate or the Elevated Overseers. They have this, if you have the ship upgrade that makes your sentries target enemies that are tagged by you, the same applies to this throwable. So if there's an Elevated Overseer, which is one of the more annoying enemies in the game that you want to get rid of, you can tag it using Q on mouse and keyboard. I don't know exactly what it is on controller. But you tag the enemy, throw the seeker, and then the seeker will prioritize hitting the flying enemy, and it will always hit. If it misses, it still is able to fly and retarget and hit the enemy, so there's no way for the Elevated Overseer to escape it. It is so convenient against Illuminate, but against any other faction, it's going to be fine. Against bugs, you're not going to want to use this because it could target an enemy that's right in front of you, because most of the enemies that you're going to be facing against the Terminids are going to be melee. So I wouldn't recommend it against Terminids. It doesn't clear the bug holes, so it doesn't really fill that niche as a throwable. And then against bots, you're not going to really need, like, you want your throwable against the bots to most of the time either confuse the enemies or do like crowd control like gas or stun, or anti-tank like with thermites or lure mines or, you know, what have you. The seeker just doesn't really stand out against the bots in that way. So with all that being said, the Servants of Freedom Warbond, like Viper Commandos, like Urban Legends, has a couple of things in it that are definite fantastic pickups for any player. The Ultimatum and Portable Hellbomb are some of the best and should be most used weapons in the game that you can bring to any match. Next is Borderline Justice. This Warbond is a Western-themed Warbond with the sidearm gunslinger armor passive, increasing reload speed, holster and draw speed, and sidearm recoil reduction. It's good if you want to do a sidearm-focused build. This is a good armor passive to pair with the Senator or the Verdict, which is the Deagle that you get from, I forget which Warbond, but regardless, a good armor passive, not one that you're going to use all that often, because it's just not going to be as comparable to Siege Ready, which gives you a huge bonus to your primary weapon, which is almost always going to be more impactful than your secondary. Unless you're using the Talon or the Ultimatum. But the Talon and the Ultimatum don't benefit from this armor passive as much. Ultimatum doesn't care as much because you're only going to be firing it a couple of times. Unless you're doing a quick draw trick with the Ultimatum to increase its range. The holster and draw speed isn't really going to be all that relevant to you, because you're going to be using it to either clear a fabricator or a heavy enemy, like a tanky enemy, and tanky enemies don't move all that quick. Even chargers, like, you just don't, the holster and draw speed just isn't relevant, and neither is the recoil for the ultimatum. So this armor almost suffers from the ultimatum being as good as it is, because it kind of makes every other sidearm less good. That being said, the first primary weapon you get, the Deadeye, is a very good and skill testing primary weapon. It is rounds reload, but it is a high damage, medium armor penetrating rifle. It allows you to one-shot a lot of the medium enemies in the game, and has a fairly decent fire rate for doing that as well. If you can get used to the way it reloads, and like, if you can get used to the weapon, it's a really good weapon. A lot of people are ride or die Deadeye mains, and after you get used to it, you can pretty easily deal with almost any situation that enemies throw at you. This Warbond is also where you get the Talon, which is an S tier secondary weapon, and highly recommend getting this Warbond, if only for the Talon. So you get a really good primary weapon and an S tier secondary weapon, which is a premium because, again, there aren't that many S tier secondary weapons that can compare with the Talon. There's also the sample extricator booster. So I would say that this is a good booster to pick up earlier rather than later. You can see it being used by people who are still unlocking all the ship upgrades. So it's good for early players of the game that still care about samples. So not necessarily something that you should write off completely. You'll never really see it. Most of the time people prefer to bring boosters that help them survive more, rather than boosters that give them more samples, because they don't get any samples if they don't extract from the mission. But regardless, it's fine. There's the Dynamite, which they buffed to be either more armor penetration or more damage, one or the other, but it's fine throwable. It's a little bit outshone by, say, a Thermite, because the Thermite is sticky. The Dynamite is not. It has a larger AoE than the Thermite, so you can get more out of it if you place it well. I see it used occasionally. It's definitely not a bad throwable. It has its niche as an anti-tank throwable, which not many throwables are able to do outside of the Thermite. And then there's the Hover Pack, which is a very interesting stratagem that you can use in a variety of situations. I would say that you're only really ever going to use it against the Terminids, because there are not many Terminid enemies that can range you when you're in the air. It has some niche uses for, like, putting yourself up on a rock that enemies can't reach you at if you're fighting the squids, for example, and, like, only the elevated overseers are able to reach you, and you have, let's say, the homing grenade, the deal with the elevated overseers. You can pretty easily control the battlefield that way. So it has its niches that it fits into for specific builds, but in terms of mobility and in terms of, like, where you can get to avoid enemies, like up on a rock, you can also replicate that effect with the jump pack if you're a little bit clever about how you scale up specific rocks. Um, so, and the jump pack also allows you to move faster horizontally compared to the hover pack, which is only going to give you vertical. Um, it is a very fun stratagem to pair with, notably the flamethrower, where you hover in the air above enemies that can't reach you, and then you fire down on them, and you have the angle to cover a very wide area with fire that way. So definitely not a write-off stratagem. It has its own kind of niche that it fits into. And then, so with all of that said, you get a premium primary weapon, you get an S tier sidearm, you get a decent, fine, niche armor passive, a niche backpack, fairly decent throwable, and a booster that you might be interested in if you're a newer player. So with all of that being said, I think this is a very good Warbond to pick up. I would say that because of the talent alone, it kind of puts it in the same situation as Viper Commandos, where you get an S tier weapon in a category that doesn't have many S tiers to pick from. And because not only do you get the Talon, but also the Deadeye and the Dynamite and the Hover Pack, there are other things in this Warbond that you can make use of that aren't necessarily the S tier options that are available. So I would say overall, Democratic Detonation is still the only S tier Warbond so far. But Borderline Justice does get up there in terms of what it offers, carried mostly by the Talon. Next is Masters of Ceremony. This features the Reinforced Epaulets armor passive, which is a very good armor passive, very similar to the Siege Ready armor that gives you bonus to your primary weapon reload speed. It also gives you a chance to avoid limb injury, which is very good. Getting a badly timed broken leg is a killer for a lot of people. It also increases melee damage, so it has a kind of a grab bag of decent things to throw onto an armor passive. The Amendment is a good rifle. I'm a big fan of this weapon. It one taps automaton heads, so it's a fun weapon to bring against the automatons. The bayonet on the front makes it a somewhat viable weapon to bring against both the Illuminate and the bugs as well. So it is overall pretty decent marksman rifle, even though it doesn't have it only has light armor penetration. If you're able to find the weak spots of enemies consistently that are light armor penetration, you can do a pretty decent amount of damage while also having the bayonet as a side option in case you need a close quarters method of protection. This also has the saber, which is not good. If you're doing a melee build, this is not going to be the strongest melee weapon that you have available to you as an option. So pretty bad. Melee in this game is pretty bad, even though they have kind of reworked it and buffed it a few times. One True Flag is no exception. If you're going to be using a spear, use the Stun Lance from the Urban Warbond. Don't use the One True Flag. The One True Flag is for memeing. It's for fun. It's funny to bring a flag. It's not good. You'll see videos of people killing like a tripod with it or something like along those lines, but it's a meme. The Pyrotech throwable is good. It's a good throwable. It's another incendiary throwable. You get 6 of them compared to the other incendiary grenades where you only get 4. Overall, I think among the incendiary grenades, it's the best because you get more charges. Your able to somewhat consistently, even though it's fairly floaty throwable when you use it, you can get used to it and do just as much damage to enemies with it as you would a single incendiary throwable that you could get from the other Warbonds. Um, so I would kind of put it in the same category as um, the dynamite, where it is a good throwable, but not necessarily a fantastic throwable. I think in the fire throwable niche, it does the best out of all of those. So it's not something you should completely neglect. It's definitely an A tier throwable, which is really good, right? But not the best throwable. There's also sample scanner, which is similar to the last booster, where it basically just allows you to find more samples, which is good for people who are newer. Not something to discount by any stretch. So putting it all together, you get a really good armor passive, and a decent primary and a decent throwable, right? Most people pick up this Warbond because it has really good drip. So, from a viability standpoint, it has a couple of decent things going for it, but nothing that's necessarily stand out. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in C tier. It has decent options, but from a viability standpoint, it's going to be comparable to, Steeled Veterans or Cutting Edge in terms of the strength of the things that you actually get from the Warbond. All right, next up is Force of Law. So the Force of Law Warbond, it has the ballistic padding armor passive. It combines chest damage reduction, explosive damage reduction, and also prevents damage from bleeding if your chest gets injured. This is a really good armor passive. Overall, just good things to have on an armor. It doesn't necessarily specialize into any one build. It's just generally good damage reduction and protection. So you can basically pair this with anything you want to. So it's a decent armor passive. The pacifier is one of the better weapons that has the stun effect on it. It has its uses. I would say that it's probably the second best stun weapon behind or crowd control primary weapon behind the Punisher Plasma. So I would put this maybe in B tier, because it does fill a niche fairly well, but it is somewhat outclassed by another option that you have available. So it's fine. You have to really want to have a stunning weapon, though. It pairs more well with divers that are more team focused, I would say, and are going to be hanging out around other divers who can capitalize on weapons by enemies being stunned. You're not going to be someone who focuses on killing enemies. You're going to try to keep as many enemies stunned as possible. Against the Illuminate, that'll be elevated overseers or regular overseers mostly. Against, say, bugs, it'll be warriors and stalkers and the like. So it's fine, has its niche, not necessarily a standout weapon. The de-escalator, though, by comparison, very good. It says only medium armor penetration, but you can 100% kill chargers with it, somewhat trivially, I would say. It has an incredibly long reload. It is rounds reload. Right? So every single round that you fire from this thing has to be manually reloaded. All right? There's no drum that you can just swap it out with if you fire all your shots. So definitely keep that in mind. That being said, it is a very, very strong support weapon for horde clearing. And it pairs with it a unique effect with the arc. You don't get many good arc weapons, and this is definitely one of them. So definitely a good support weapon to pick up. Stun pods, I would say this is slightly better compared to the incendiary hell pods that you can get, because you're not going to accidentally kill your teammates with it. And it allows you to go for a heavy enemy kill and also stun chafe that might be around the heavy enemy after you drop your drop pod. So it's better than the incendiary hell pods, but it's still not one of the premium boosters. So for that reason, it's just not really highly valued. The K9 guard dog, very, very good guard dog. The arc on the K9 does the most damage. This is the highest damage output to a single target that any guard dog is able to put out. Maybe outside of the flame guard dog. But with that, it also has a stun effect with the arcing. It is able to not only do high single target damage, but also chain to multiple enemies. So it's a very good guard dog. It's also a very easy guard dog to kill your teammates with. So if you use this, definitely make sure you know your backpack button, so that if you are near your teammates, or like your teammates are between you and enemies, you press that backpack button to have your guard dog move onto your back. All right, so you're if you bring this backpack, you are going to have it do a lot of work, right? But you also have to be careful when you use these kinds of weapons. Same thing with the de-escalator. It's very easy to get friendly fire with these weapons. But they are good weapons. The urchin is like the thermite, where it sticks and then has an arc pulse that it does every couple seconds. And it will, if you stick it to a charger, I think on its own it will kill a charger. But if nothing else, it will stun it and surrounding enemies while dealing damage. So similar to a thermite, it can be used for anti-tank. I don't think it stuns Bile Titans and super heavy enemies like that, but like with a charger or a Hulk, you can one-shot those pretty easily with the sea urchin. You can't get fabricators with it, you can't get holes with it. So it is kind of a weird one, where it is fairly effective at killing specific enemies, but you don't necessarily see it all that often because it doesn't provide the same utility that a lot of other throwables do, like say the thermite. So it's a decent throwable, but definitely not an S tier one. So with all that being said, you get a good armor passive, a good support weapon, and a good backpack with this Warbond. It is very solid. It has weapons that are well liked, and also solid to use in most builds. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in B tier, where it has, like chemical agents, some solid things that you can bring that kind of are standouts and fill specific build niches that you're not going to find in the free Warbond. But at the same time, you're not going to find anything in the Warbond that is necessarily a standout in terms of power. Next Warbond is Control Group. This has the Adreno Defibrillator armor passive, which allows your Helldiver to survive for a brief period of time after you are killed. It puts you back at full health, and it makes you incredibly slow. You can't sprint after you're defibrillated. And you're constantly losing health over time. So in order to stay alive, you have to use all of your stims. So it is not that good. You're not able to really get a lot of work done while you're bleeding out after you're defibrillated. The increased stim duration is good for extending the amount of time that you have after you're defibrillated. It's a decent armor to pair with, say, the Hellbond backpack, because it allows you to more consistently arm the backpack and place it in a location that you want to put it in order to maximize the amount of people that you kill, or to get it, within range of the detector tower or the stratagem jammer or whatever, in order to destroy that. It also has arc damage reduction tacked on top of it. It's fine. Same issue as the arc damage resistant armor from before, where it's just not going to have that many uses, and you're not going to get that much out of it compared to other armors where you use the entire armor passive every game. It's not considered drippy either, so it's kind of it's kind of just not a really well received armor. Its viability or its looks. The variable primary weapon, it's marketed as a super flexible weapon. It's light armor penetration. You're able to fire it full auto or burst or single fire. You can fire one bullet at a time or an entire volley with every, one shot from every barrel, I think. Or, you can fire the entire barrel at the same time, which allows you to one-shot hulks. But with that recoil, unless you're prone, you are going to be ragdolled from the knockback of that. It's an interesting weapon. It has its uses. It fills a niche in that it tries to be a light penetration assault rifle. You're mostly going to be using this as an assault rifle where you fire single shots at full auto. You're not very often going to be using this as a sniper. You can, and you also can one-shot hulks with it. It has some niche uses. That being said, it doesn't do it. It's the jack of all trades weapon. It does a lot of things okay. It doesn't really do anything great. It is one of the few primary weapons that can kill heavy units on its own fairly well if you're able to line up a single shot, which is unique. But it is otherwise a fairly clunky weapon to use. So it's kind of in this weird spot where I would put it maybe B tier. Like I usually put a lot of value on it being able to fill a niche, which it does somewhat as a primary weapon, but not well, not necessarily well. The Epoch is an interesting one. It is similar to the Quasar Cannon, where it is a charged, heavy enemy destroying type weapon. It has a big AoE compared to the Quasar Cannon, but it also punishes you if you can't get the timing right. I would say that this is maybe the most slept on, but I think the community is coming around to it recently, actually. Support weapons in the game. It only has 4 shots per I don't know what do you call it, per ammo, per pod that you have to reload or whatever. So you have to reload this constantly, and you do have to completely stop whenever you reload it. So it is kind of a clunky support weapon to use. The reload time is not trivial. You can very easily be caught out if you are stuck reloading this thing with enemies nearby. With that being said, it is able to take out hordes of enemies. It's also able to take out tanks. It's also able to take out side objectives like fabricators and anti-air or mortars or what have you. So because of that, I think that it fills a very interesting niche as a support weapon, being able to be fired in basically 2 modes, with one being a more rapid fire medium charge and one being an anti-tank large AoE full charge. And I think if you can kind of get around the weird quirks that it has, it can be one of the most effective support weapons in the game. So I very highly I have very high opinions of the Epoch in terms of a support weapon. The laser sentry, not necessarily a standout sentry. It has a weird gimmick where it explodes into as like a fire AoE if it overcharges. It it doesn't do all that much damage compared to another kind of sentry. It won't always aim in the place that you want it to. So if there's like a shield devastator in like the video here, it won't aim to avoid the shield. It'll just continue firing the shield. So it can very easily get stuck on an enemy that it has no idea how to kill, which is a problem that a lot of sentries have. But you know, it's not going to do any more work than a Gatling sentry would. A Gatling sentry is going to do a lot more work than a laser sentry will. And it has about the same cooldown as a Gatling sentry, so there's not really any point to picking it up. It's fine, but you're not going to pick up this Warbond just for the laser sentry. The arc grenade, similar to the urchin, but it doesn't stick and it bounces around, and it has more pulses or a larger AoE, or maybe I just think it has a larger AoE because it bounces around so much. More about crowd control than about single target shutdown. It's similar to the urchin in the way that it has a stunning arc AoE. It's good. It's fine. It doesn't clear bug holes. It doesn't clear fabricators. It doesn't serve that kind of utility that throwable has. So you have to knock some points for that. So, you know, A tier throwable in terms of crowd control. It stuns. You can pair it with gas. You can pair it with fire. So it serves a good niche there. It's going to be similar to a de-escalator shot in terms of like the impact that each of its pulses has. And you only get 4 of them, so you can't really spam it too much either. So yeah, decent throwable. Now, the warp pack. My opinion, not only the most fun backpack in the game to use, also, in my opinion, the most individually powerful, other than the support pack. The support pack does so much more, partially because the ultimatum exists and every single support pack resupply gives you another ultimatum shot. If not for that, warp pack easily would be matching it in every single conversation about backpacks. I think that the warp pack has so much utility. Not only is it the best backpack for solo traversing outside of using the FRV, it allows you to position yourself well to avoid dying in so many situations. It allows you to go through walls. It allows you to completely evade enemies that are chasing you in so many situations, which is so good in this game. Being able to reposition yourself with a teleport is insanely good. It also allows you to damage enemies if you warp on top of them, though you have to be careful that you don't warp inside of them because then you will die and not the enemy. But it does an incredible amount of damage when you warp onto an enemy successfully. So that shouldn't be something you discount either. It's a popular backpack to have for melee focused builds because it allows you to warp into an area, get some melee kills, or to run into an area, get some melee kills, and warp out successfully before you get overwhelmed by the amount of enemies that are surrounding you. It's incredibly versatile. It allows you to traverse the area very quickly. It's very good for full clears, which is something that early players are going to be doing a lot of. So for all of those reasons, absolutely an S tier stratagem permit. Personally, I find it very fun too, so I think it's also a really good thing for early, for players to pick up early. I have very high opinions of it. Obviously, I could sing its praises all day. There's so many cool little things you can do, like walking off of a ledge and then teleporting to the ground so that you don't take any fall damage. It's very good for escaping, bot fortresses that way, which have a lot of very high elevated concrete structures that you're jumping off of all the time. So recapping Control Group Warbond. Epoch, very good support weapon. Fills a really good anti-tank niche. Warp Pack, incredibly good backpack. In my opinion, the best and most fun backpack in the game. Outside of the support backpack, but and then the arc throwable, good. Variable, fine. For all those reasons, I put the Control Group Warbond up there with all of these. On second thought, I would put Servants of Freedom. See, I'm thinking about it now again. And frankly, I would put Servants of Freedom and Control Group over these three Warbonds. I think that this is kind of in order here where you would still want to get Democratic Detonation first, and then Servants of Freedom and Control Group. But I think that you would get them in this order, just because of how good the Warp Pack is. The Warp Pack and Epoch are, and how good the Ultimatum and Hellbomb Backpack are. Those alone are better than anything that you're going to get in Viper Commandos, Urban Legends, or Borderline Justice, even though that those are good Warbonds to pick up as well. All right, the ODST Warbond. You get a medium penetration assault rifle, which is almost identical to the Liberator Penetrator. You get an armor passive, which makes you do less noise and also gives you point of interest identification range, which is not something to sneeze at for new players. You have a suppressed SMG. You have a really good shotgun, which is rounds reload, but it has the highest single shot damage of any shotgun. Then you also get a silenced pistol. Why do I not like this Warbond? So this Warbond is one of the legendary Warbonds, and what that means is that the cost of this one Warbond is, let's see, 1,500. Every other premium Warbond in this game is 1,000. 1,000 super credits. This Warbond is 1,500. It's 50% more expensive, and it doesn't have any super credits for you to get inside of it. So it is notably more expensive. You don't get the super credit rebate that other premium Warbonds give you. It is a trap for new players. A lot of new players who come from Xbox especially see the Halo Warbond, they pick it up. What they don't realize is that it's more expensive and doesn't offer the same rebates that other premium Warbonds do. So it is a fantastic money sink for people who just want the Halo Warbond stuff. The weapons in it are fine. They're not standouts. They don't serve a specific niche. The suppressed weapons are kind of interesting, but if you're looking for suppressed stealth weapons, don't pick this Warbond. Pick the Redacted Regiment Warbond. That's going to give you better suppressed weapons and better stealth armor, and more stealth utility on top of all of that, and also a better support weapon with the C4. Halo is mostly just going to be for drip, and for people who are really big Halo fans. So I put it in D tier. It's going to be for Halo fans only, and it's going to be a fantastic money or super credit sink for people who are new and don't realize that it's more expensive than every other premium Warbond. Dust Devils. This is the kind of Dune themed Warbond that has the Desert Stormer armor passive, which gives you resistance to every type of elemental damage in the game. This is an incredibly versatile armor passive. On top of the resistance that it gives you, it also gives you throwing range. This armor shined especially on Oshana, where you had the dragon roaches, which do fire and acid damage. If you have a build that mixes fire, gas, and electrical damage, you're like stacking together dot effects like that. It's a good armor to bring. let's see, the first primary weapon you get is the Coyote. This has been a much discussed weapon for being power creep. It is a medium penetration incendiary assault rifle that fires full auto and has decent damage on top of all of that. It is probably one of the best, if not the best, primary weapons in the game. It feels like it was balanced to keep up with the Eruptor as a non-explosive weapon. And I think it does. I think that it is an absolutely fantastic weapon. I don't think it's necessarily the best weapon in the game, but I think that it outshines a lot of assault rifles because of having a combined medium armor penetration and incendiary effect. It is an absolutely incredible weapon, and it is very easy to use and very intuitive feeling. When you get good at using the Coyote, you know how many shots it takes to set each enemy on fire, and you don't waste ammo by putting too many bullets into an enemy and just letting the fire kill them instead. It's simultaneously easy to pick up and also benefits from the user getting more experienced with it. The spear gun is the only support weapon you should be using if you're doing a gas-centric only build. You should not use the sterilizer, you should use the spear gun. The spear gun is an explosive anti-tank spear that explodes into a gas cloud. It is better crowd control for gas than the sterilizer. When it explodes, it can destroy fabricators and bug holes. It also stuns tanky enemies and will take a charger out of its charge. It will stun a War Strider out of it shooting at you or launching grenades. It has incredible utility, incredible range, incredible damage, incredible crowd control. It's an incredible support weapon. The expendable napalm is a very good expendable to bring if you're doing an Oops All Expendables build. It's really good to pair with the expendable anti-tank. The anti-tank taking care of all of the bigger enemies, and then the napalm doing crowd control. Very good support weapon to bring if you have multiple expendables that you're bringing to fill that slot. And just a good thing to throw onto a bug breach or onto a bot drop that will just instantly coat an entire area in fire. Solo silo, a good thing to pair with the expendable napalm, is a single target fuck you. You call it down, you take the remote, and then you point at a target, which can be hundreds of meters away, and then the solo silo will take it out. It doesn't take out stratagem jammers or detector towers to much. Many people were upset by that, but at the same time, it can solo a Strider Fabricator. It can take out multiple Fabricators on its own. It allows you to remain completely stealthy while using it because you can use it from so far away. It is just a fantastically versatile single-use weapon that you can hold on to until you need it. The pineapple has been changed a little bit. After the update, it is incredibly good. It keeps its utility of being able to take out fabricators and bug holes and the like, and also has a very interesting frag explosive effect that no other throwable has. It's a really good high damage AoE to bring as a throwable. It doesn't necessarily have the same utility that a gas grenade has, or that a smoke grenade has, or that a thermite has for anti-tank reasons, but it's a good throwable. It's definitely a very good throwable, and it's also a fun throwable. So with all that being said, Dust Devils, insanely good Warbond. Really good armor passive, really good primary, really good support weapons. 3 really good support weapons, and then the spear gun is just an S tier support weapon. I struggled for a very long time after Oshana to switch off of the spear gun because of how good it was. So with all that being said, Dust Devils I think is 100% going to be up there as an S tier Warbond. Like Democratic Demolition, it just has so many things that do so much work for you. So it's hard to give it anything other than an S tier rank. Next is Python Commandos. This is like a Viper Commandos Part 2 Warbond, jungle themed Warbond with more armor similar to that. The first primary weapon you get is the 1-2, light penetration assault rifle with an alternate fire undermounted grenade launcher. The grenade launcher is going to be your utility. It's similar to the grenade pistol, which allows you to close bug holes and fabricators. It's a little awkward to switch between. I haven't honestly tried it since the option to rebind your weapon mode switching to a specific button. I would imagine that makes it a little bit less clunky to use. That being said, as primary weapons go, it's not going to feel very good when you're using the assault rifle side because it's going to just feel like a worse liberator. And then the added utility for the, so like you really have to want to use the undermounted grenade launcher for that utility. I would say that maybe this is a candidate for a weapon that you use with a sidearm centric build with the gunslinger armor, where you just have this as a primary for the utility of closing fabricators and bug holes with the grenade launcher, and then you just have like a secondary that you use to clear out most enemies. It's interesting. It's not incredibly good. I don't think it necessarily does its job all that well. It makes you wonder why you wouldn't just take the eruptor, other than this weapon. You know, the hot dog. It's a good guard dog. Like the gas guard dog. The dog breath. It kind of serves the niche of being one of your sources for a good dot effect that you can apply to enemies. Unlike the dog breath, it doesn't confuse enemies, so it doesn't have that kind of added utility. It's going to be high damage over time, but you're not going to be able to control where the fire goes, so you have a hard time kind of picking what areas are covered in fire that enemies are walking through, which isn't a problem that you have with the fire, with this with the flamethrower type weapons. That being said, it's a good guard dog, pretty solid, but it's very easy to light a place on fire that you don't mean to set on fire or to accidentally set a teammate on fire. So something to keep in mind. The defoliation tool. Unfortunately, this weapon suffers from the fact that the explosive charge hammer, the breaching hammer, came out very shortly after this Warbond was released. So it's a fine melee weapon. When it was released, it was the most viable melee weapon. It's definitely fun. It's high damaging, but it takes up your support weapon slot. So while it is one of the more effective support weapons that you can, or one of the most effective melee weapons that you can bring, it's also going to take your support weapon slot, which is fairly painful for most builds. So it is somewhat relegated in that way to being a meme weapon, where it's not ever going to be the most viable option to bring the defoliation tool. If you want to do that much damage that quickly, just bring a heavy machine gun, and then you can shoot enemies from a distance instead. So, unfortunately, not a really good weapon to bring. The maxi gun. Maxi gun kind of suffers from the same issues that the belt-fed grenade launcher also suffers from, to where it is almost always going to be outclassed by just bringing the equivalent support weapon and a support backpack. Why do I say this? Well, comparing this weapon to a heavy machine gun that you increase the RPM with, and then you have, say, the armor passive that improves your weapon handling. You're going to have higher armor penetration, which allows you to continue firing even for when you see heavy enemies approaching you. You're not able to put as much lead downrange. The maxi gun is incredibly fun for that. For bug breaches, it absolutely clears, but a lot of things clear bug breaches. A lot of AoEs are available to you. Napalm, gas, a lot of weapons put a lot of bullets down range. So the maxi gun isn't filling a unique role there. And it takes up your backpack slot too. So whereas when you use the HMG and support backpack combo, you can use your support backpack not only to get more ammo for your HMG, but also for your ultimatum, which is going to probably be the sidearm that you use if you're using the most optimal sidearm. Then you get an extra ultimatum shot every single time. You get, an extra 4 ultimatum shots on top of refilling your HMG. The maxi gun doesn't need to be refilled, or you don't need to reload the maxi gun, which is a benefit, but it also locks you in place whenever you're firing it. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're firing and then you're snuck up on because you turn like a semi truck whenever you're firing that thing, you can't react and dive away, because if you dive while firing, you're just going to go prone because it doesn't allow you to dive while you're firing. The maxi gun just has weaknesses that alternatives don't run into, and its strengths are not far and away better than some of the alternatives that you would be able to recreate with different combinations of support weapons and backpacks. So for that reason, while I admit it is maybe one of the most fun stratagems to use in the entire game, I wouldn't say that it's far and away the best at filling a specific niche in terms of horde clearing. All right, so with all that being said, I've been fairly negative on this Warbond. The armor passive isn't all that great either. If you're doing a melee focus build, maybe you go for this, but honestly, the Viper command, or the Viper Commando Warbond with its improved weapon handling is usually going to be better than this armor for most builds that you make. So while this Warbond does have some fun stuff going on in it, and it does have some stuff that fills some interesting niches for build creation, it doesn't have anything that's necessarily S tier or standout. So for that reason, I would kind of put it in the same slot as Chemical Agents and Force of Law, where it has good stuff going on. It doesn't have any great stuff going on. It doesn't have any standout stuff going on. You're not going to feel bad for picking it up. You're going to have some good stuff to play with in that, some fun stuff to play with in that, some more options opened up to you for build creation, but you're not going to have the same kind of impact on how easy the game is for you for picking up this Warbond. Next is Redacted Regiment. This is the stealth-focused Warbond. If you're not into the stealth type of gameplay, you're going to probably rate this Warbond a lot differently than I rate this Warbond. I really enjoy the stealth gameplay. There are some bugs for how viable stealth is and how enemy detection works. So if you're the host, you're going to have a different experience playing stealth. Stealth doesn't work as well when you're the host. And then also, I've had some personal experiences where there are specific, like for example, the incendiary core of the bots will detect you easier, even if you're using suppressed weapons to take out enemies. Like I'll take out one random little bot, and then suddenly an entire squad knows exactly where I am and starts shooting immediately. which isn't something that I really ran into with the commando missions when we didn't have the unique automaton regiments showing up as well, like the Incineration Corps and the Jetpack Brigade. All that being said, the sensor, which is the suppressed sniper rifle that you, or the suppressed marksman rifle that you get, is incredibly good. It is so fun. It has enough damage to one shot automaton heads. It is suppressed, so it allows you to take a few shots, reposition, take a few shots, reposition, or just take out a few key enemies and then sneak in, arm a hellbomb, sneak out. It enables the stealth gameplay so well. It is the best stealth weapon on this Warbond, and it is incredibly fun. I think it is an incredibly awesome feat that Arrowhead was able to create a light armor penetrating marksman rifle, feel good and fit a niche. The Re-Educator, I don't really like this sidearm. It doesn't fit with my playstyle. Being able to gas an individual enemy almost never is needed. If you are worried about individual enemies getting in your way, you're not, how do I say this? Why not just run away? If you like, the gas grenade is good because it allows you to apply the gas effect to multiple enemies instantly, right? Re-Educator is single target. You can gas multiple enemies in order to, you know, get them confused and then like move in, but it's still going to alert adjacent enemies, right? Like, so like it doesn't do a lot of damage, and the niche kind of effect that it does is just completely outclassed by other utilities that you would probably be considering bringing anyway. So I just don't really feel it. Usually when I'm making a build, it just doesn't really kind of fill that kind of utility better than literally anything else. I would always use a stun grenade or a gas grenade or gas mines over a Re-Educator, just because they fill that kind of niche better and are able to kind of apply that effect to a much, you know, larger number of enemies at the same time. The suppressor, this is the assault rifle version of the sensor. It's fine. It's also suppressed, so it is also viable to use stealthy, and it's better in the close quarters kind of situation. And if you are detected, I would admit that most of the time I would prefer to have the suppressor than the sensor, but at the same time, I just think that the sensor is so much better. So most of the time I would prefer to bring the sensor over the suppressor. But if you're having kind of like a hit and run kind of build where sometimes you're stealthy, sometimes you're not, the suppressor is something that does fill a niche for that type of build. The lure mine is interesting. You throw it and then enemies will go towards it and try to destroy it as though it was an enemy. If you use this against bugs, you can throw it and it sticks against a wall, so you can have a group of enemies gather around the lure mine, and you can distract a huge number of them, which you can then just leave or take out with an AoE. So it's interesting. It has like some fun uses, but you only get 3 of them. You can't use this the same way you would like a gas grenade. A gas grenade you can throw, you get 4 uses of, and it does the exact same thing a lure mine does, and doesn't require you to stick it on a wall for it to be persistent. A lure mine will explode as soon as an enemy gets on top of it. and who knows how many enemies are around it if it's just placed on the ground, right? A gas grenade will confuse an entire group of enemies, and you can much more easily control which group of enemies gets affected by that, which allows you much more easily avoid enemy confrontations, um, which is what the lure mine is trying to do. It does kind of serve a niche of also being anti-tank. If you stick it to the side of a fabricator and explode it, I think it also destroys the fabricator. Though I don't know because I don't use the lure mine at all. So I don't really know all of the tech that you can do with it. The throwing range is incredibly reduced to a normal throwable, so you can't really chuck this thing you would like a regular grenade. So you better be willing to throw this thing and then immediately run away and reposition, because as soon as you throw it, enemies are going to go towards it, and because you can't throw it very far away, enemies are going to be moving towards you where you just threw the lure mine. So it just feels like it doesn't synergize with itself in the type of build that you would be ideally using the lure mine for. If you're using it to play stealth, it draws enemies to a specific position, which initially is going to be near you. So I would almost always use a smoke grenade or a gas grenade over a lure mine any day if I was doing a stealth build. The C4 pack. This is an incredibly good stratagem to use. It is a premium for stealth builds that want an anti-tank option. When you're stealthing, unless you're the host, when you throw this against an enemy, they don't react to it being stuck to them. You can stick this on a Hulk, you can stick this on a fabricator. While you're sneaking through the entire base, you can stick this on every single fabricator, and then wait until you're outside the base to blow them all up and then run away. And without a single enemy being the wiser, it makes you feel like you're Solid Snake while you're doing all of it, just sneaking through a base and sticking everything and then walking away and blowing everything up without a single enemy ever detecting you. It feels incredible. It one-shots Hulks. It one-shots War Striders. It one-shots tanks if you place it well. It one-shots the side objectives of the mortars and the anti-air. You get 7 uses of it, and you can explode one at a time or throw all of them and then explode them in a giant ball of fire. It lacks the range of, say, a recoilless, so you're not going to be hitting the same across map shots that you would be with a recoilless, but at the same time, you're not going to be alerting an entire outpost after you destroy the first fabricator. You can wait until you stick every single fabricator. So it has been criticized for being a worse recoilless because the recoilless is able to be fired from a much larger distance away, but at the same time, it just fills a different niche. It fills a different build niche. It so I think that the C4 pack is slightly slept on in terms of its viability, and I think it's a very good complement for stealth focused builds. Concealed insertion. This is a booster that is good, but it is only good if you specifically are going to be doing stealth focused missions. It is a decent way of throwing up smoke when you land, say, on a bot's what do you call it, orbital artillery, the main objective where you destroy like the orbital artillery guns or whatever. If you drop on that, you can drop all the way at the top next to the gun and then have absolutely no bot know that you're even there. So you can instantly call down the hell bomb and arm it without any bot being the wiser. it has some and because it has that kind of utility, it does find itself being used when you have that goal of having a stealth focused build. This applies to all of your hell pods, not just your Helldiver hell pods. So all of your support weapons that you call down if you have like an oops all expendables build. Every time you throw down expandable anti-tank or an expandable napalm or a leveler or whatever, those hell pods will also throw up smoke as well. So you can also use your other stratagems like mines and or sentries to throw up smoke as well, obscuring vision. Um, so this Warbond, more than I would say any other Warbond, is catering to a very specific niche of build. I love it to death because it enables more than any other Warbond a very specific type of build that previously was not really that viable. There weren't really any viable options for stealthing before this Warbond, or if you did go for a stealth type of build, you didn't have nearly as easy of a time with it as you would with this Warbond. So I would say that overall, in terms of strength, you're probably going to rate this on B. I talked it up a lot, but you know, I could see it being put in A or B. The individual strength of the items isn't necessarily a standout in any regard, but it does cater to a very specific type of build, right? But it's not going to be a build that everybody really cares to interact with. So depending on how you value that, I could see it being in either A or B. For me, because I kind of interface with a lot of different builds, I would probably put it in A. All right, Siege Breakers. The Trident energy weapon is like a laser shotgun. It shoots out 6 lasers at a time. It's light armor penetration. It's fairly fast rate of fire, and it also heats up very quickly. So you have to watch that if you don't want to burn through all of your heat sinks instantly. It is very good against the Luminate. It's very good against the bugs, and it's okay against the automatons. I was actually fairly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised how much I actually didn't hate using it against the automatons. The armor passive supplemental adrenaline gives you a solid higher armor rating, and then also gives you stamina regen whenever you take damage, which is solid. It's a solid armor passive to have. I would say that you can compare this to the armor passive that just gives you more armor flat, and you'll probably evaluate them the same way. The extra stamina from taking damage isn't always going to be relevant. However, when you're running away from enemies and you need as much stamina as you can to make distance, taking a little bit of damage and then getting some stamina back as compensation for that damage is not negligible. It does make it easier for you to escape situations where you're trying to retreat and reposition away from an enemy engagement. So it's not necessarily the most strong armor passive, but it's definitely a very solid one, and one that you'll never feel bad about bringing. The Breaching Hammer, incredibly fun. Maybe the only viable melee weapon in the game. It allows you to destroy fabricators if you know where to hit them. You can one-shot hulks with it. Incredible utility, incredible damage. Very good melee weapon, and then the explosive aspect of it also allowing you to clear walls so that you can get through areas, or to destroy fabricators or heavy units. you are immune to the explosion that it creates, so you don't have to worry about taking damage from the hammer blowing up in your face. Um, it's very fun to pair with gas or anything that infuses your enemies. Um, Very fun. It is melee, so you do put yourself in situations where it's a lot easier for you to die, especially if you don't coordinate with your teammates. If you run into a group of enemies and then get blown up because one of your teammates brought a mortar, it's kind of on you for bringing the breaching hammer when one of your teammates brought a mortar, right? So be careful when you use a weapon like this. While it is very good, it is very dependent on the loadouts of your teammates. Putting yourself on the front lines with enemies is going to make you a target for every single guard dog and every single sentry, and every single AoE and orbital barrage that your teammates might want to put on the enemies instead of you with a hammer. All right. So it works better with coordination with your teammates, or if you are kind of off on your own. So just keep that in mind. It fills a very fun niche, and it fills it well, better than any other melee weapon has up until this point. But that does not make it immune to the drawbacks that other melee focused builds have, which is mainly team coordination. The leveler, similar to the very, very similar to how I would view the solo silo in terms of its use case. It has a shorter range. It has an arc that you have to get used to, similar to the ultimatum, where it's a kind of high damage anti-tank shot that it has a higher damage, a bigger AoE, and less of less of an arc than the ultimatum has. I find that it not only has a lower cooldown time than the solo silo, it also has a bigger AoE and more damage. So every use that you can find for the solo silo, you can fill the same use with the leveler. Now, the leveler, you have to adjust to it's more of a skill testing weapon because you have to get used to the arc a lot more. You can hit enemies from very far away. You can hit enemies from around 170 meters away, but like you need to get used to the arc if you want to hit it consistently. With the solo silo, you just point and forget. With the leveler, you can get more out of it, and you can call more of them down over time. But at the same time, it is not as easy to hit your targets with it. So, very good, very, very good support weapon. In my opinion, better than the solo silo, which was already a good support weapon to bring. But just a skill testing weapon to keep in mind. Belt-fed grenade launcher, similar to the minigun. It is a good weapon to bring. It is not the best weapon to bring. It similar to how with the minigun you could just bring an HMG and a support backpack or supply backpack. With the belt-fed grenade launcher, you could just bring the grenade launcher, the regular grenade launcher, and a supply backpack. So the same criticisms I have with the minigun, I have with the grenade launcher. However, with the grenade launcher, strangely, you're not locked in place when you fire it. So you can dive while firing it, and you can move while firing it. So in that way, it doesn't have the same weaknesses as the minigun. I enjoyed using it when I was fighting bugs. You can hold down the fire button a lot longer to deal with multiple bug breaches without having to worry about reloading the thing. So in a sense, even though I would consider the minigun more fun to use, I would consider the belt-fed grenade launcher more viable for fighting specifically Terminids and Illuminate. Which is a sad thing to say because the minigun is also a Terminid and Illuminate weapon that you would enjoy using it for. So Siegebreakers overall, fine armor passive, not necessarily a standout or something that caters to a specific build. You get a solid primary with the trident that fills a specific niche. You get the best melee weapon in the game that has a ton of utility. You get, in my opinion, a solid upgrade to the solo silo that has a shorter cooldown time. And the belt-fed grenade launcher is not, uh, uh, not the worst. It's a fine support weapon, but it has some of the same drawbacks that and criticisms that I would have with the minigun. Also, I completely forgot about the throwable shield. This thing is awesome. I have been shocked how easily I was able to give up using the thermite because of this thing. It is so fun, personally for me, to use the throwable shield as a way to guide newer players to positions that I want them to be in, or to give them a little shield so they don't get instantly one-tapped, or to, just give them a little bit of space. If you're like running away from an enemy engagement, you just throw down a shield and then you can just keep running. You don't need to stand in the shield. As long as the shield is between you and the enemies firing at you, it'll still block the damage. So it is it's incredibly good for a variety of builds, and I have brought the armor that gives me 2 more throwables, and I've incredibly I found it incredibly satisfying to just post up in an area, throw down a shield, and then just like crouch and lay into an enemy line of automatons. The throwable shield also will save you from a point blank ultimatum shot. It'll save you from a point blank or a fairly near point blank leveler shot. It will not save you from a hell bomb, but it'll save you from explosive weapons if you're using an ultimatum, or if you're using an interrupter, if you're using plasma punisher. It will protect you from your own AoE, which is one of the downsides of using the eruptor and using the plasma punisher. One of the only downsides of using those weapons, because otherwise they are absolutely outclassing any other primary that you can bring. So having this throwable offset one of the only downsides to what was already considered, some of the best primaries that you can bring in the game is incredibly useful. So for like the unique utility that it provides, I think that the shield throwable is absolutely S tier. It has a lot less health than you would say a shield generator stratagem would have, but it doesn't take up a stratagem slot. It's a throwable, and also it's a lot smaller, so not every single bullet that your not every single ranged attack that your enemies throw down range is going to hit your bubble. It's roughly the same size as a Helldiver. You can kind of barely squeeze in 2 Helldivers into the shield if you're careful. But yeah, so the throwable shield, absolutely S tier throwable. Incredibly fun, fits a very good niche that we didn't have up until this point. It allows you to protect your sentries, it allows you to protect your teammates, it allows you to retreat from situations more easily without taking damage, it allows you to post up in a specific section and avoid damage from explosive weapons. It has so many uses. So because of that, because of the breaching hammer, because of the trident, because of the leveler, I think that the Siegebreakers Warbond very much deserves a place in A tier, maybe S tier. I would say that the overall utility of the Siegebreakers Warbond is going to be contained in the leveler and the shield throwable. I think that the trident is good. I think that the belt-fed grenade launcher is good. I don't think that they're necessarily standouts in terms of viability. I think that the breaching hammer is good. I don't think that it is necessarily the most viable or necessarily the most easy for a new player to pick up. That playstyle is very brutal and very easy to die from. Um, but because of like the multiple uh, the multiple niches that the Warbond fills, I think that it at least has to be considered in A tier, even though it doesn't have necessarily um, standout options that can't be filled by any other stratagem in the game or option in the game. And then lastly, the Killzone Warbond. Similar to the Halo Warbond, it's another legendary Warbond that costs 1,500 super credits. It was recently added. They had a collaboration before, but they just put it all into one Warbond instead. The weapons aren't standouts. The sniper is bad. The assault rifle is similar to most of the assault rifles that you're going to have access to anyway in the free Warbond. The SMG similar to that. The armor passive is the elemental resistance that you get from the Dust Devil's Warbond armor passive, but it doesn't have the extra throwing distance. It has just slightly more elemental resistance, so the breakpoints for that aren't necessarily that interesting. Replace it with a Warbond that has a lot better stuff in it in general, and it also costs 500 super credits more without any of the rebate, so it has to be in D tier. It's just not good. So to recap, I think that anything that's in S tier is a very solid Warbond that you won't regret picking up. I think that there are multiple things inside of it that are good. Honestly, I might move the control group Warbond down a little bit, because while I do believe in the Warp Pack and Epoch supremacy, I think that they don't they aren't necessarily as accessible as some of the stuff that you're going to find in Democratic Detonation, Servants of Freedom, and Dust Devils. Those just far and away are going to be like the most individual utility items that you can find in any of the Warbonds available. And then after that, anything in A tier is going to be solid, is going to give you good tools that you can use in almost any situation, or to fill out a specific kind of build niche. B is going to be a lot of solid stuff that you can use in a lot of different situations, or builds that are maybe a bit more niche, that aren't as viable as the stuff that's enabled by A tier stuff. C tier is going to have some solid weapons, maybe a couple things here and there that are good, but overall is going to be kind of a waste of your super credits. And then D tier is going to be the pitfall traps of the legendary Warbonds, and then Polar Patriots and Truth Enforcers, which just doesn't really have anything going for it outside of maybe having some armor that you like to look at. All right. Whew. That was long.